frequently. I go down to Mar-a-Lago and visit. Let me just say very clearly, and I do mean this very clearly, please. I do not know what he is going to do. I don't. And when I'm with him, I never ask him what his opinion is of anything. I do not want to know. I do not represent Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. I represent only myself. And I represent what I say, and I say what I say to you is the same thing I say to Donald Trump. I believe it is critical for him to get the economy jump-started. He's going to be elected, I believe, in November. He'll take office on January 20th, 2025. He will have 4 years left. He's term limited to 1 4-year term because he's already served as 1 term as president. He needs to jumpstart the economy quickly. Now, there are a lot of things that he should do. He should extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the tax cuts there beyond the 10-year horizon. He should make them permanent. That he should do. He should also extend the executive order on medical price transparency. He needs to do that as well. There are a bunch of other things he needs to do. He needs to drill, baby, drill, is what he says. He needs to get energy right back. When he left office, we were energy independent. He needs to eliminate those regulations. All of that's true. But he needs one thing very, very quickly. He needs to jumpstart the economy. Total employment in the U.S. as a share of adult population is very, very low by historical standards. Investment in the U.S. is low by historical standards. What we need to do is get people off the sidelines and back into the labor force. What we need to do is activate capital investment in the U.S. economy right away. My view of the world. My suggestion to the president is that we should have a 100% expensing of all capital purchases. As soon as he can pass that bill, I think it should be done in the first 20 days. I think he should negotiate with all the senators and all the congressmen coming in to make it so that the day he takes office, they can pass that bill, he can sign into law, so that we have a 100% expensing of capital purchases to really hypersensitize growth in capital formation. Number one. Number two.
And that would be a tax reduction, of course.
Well, it wouldn't really be. It'll be a tax reduction. It would be a front-end loading of tax returns. You know, the same amount of depreciation will take place. It just will take place in 1 year as opposed to over 10 years. So it really doesn't change the total amount of taxes, but it does give you a very big upfront internal rate of return increase for capital investments. Yes.
But we always hear there that his plan about on the tariff side, increasing tariffs to the sky, 60%, whatever. That's what we read.
I'm going to come to that right after this. I will answer that question. I had a very long conversation with him on trade, and I'll take you through what that conversation was with me specifically. But let me say what the other thing I would do also is I would have a reduction, an 18-month reduction in the payroll tax in the U.S. from 14% to 7%. I would have the payroll tax for 18 months, half employer, half employee. What that would be is a temporary payroll tax waiver, and then it would go back up to where it was before. So you have a very short period of time, 18 months, to hire new labor to get an enormous tax break. Let me just give you what this would do. For a worker whose income, let's say, is $50,000, that would increase that worker's pay for that same job by $1,750, 3.5% increase in pay after tax. What it would also do, it would also reduce the cost of labor. Instead of the payment of $50,000 by the employer would have a tax savings of $1,750 So the cost of hiring a worker would be $1,750 less, and the returns to the worker, the wedge would be dropped, the Bulgarian wedge would be dropped. The returns to the worker would be $1,750 higher. So you have a very short period of time, 18 months, to take advantage of this. So it would hyper-sensitize people to come into the labor force, come into the workforce. So you'd have a huge acceleration of capital expenditures and a huge acceleration of employment to jumpstart the employment to population ratio and to increase productivity because of more capital, and also to increase average hours quite substantially, and also to make higher paid workers incentivize more than lower paid workers to increase production. That is the one key element I'm suggesting to the president that he should do immediately upon taking office.
For everyone or only newly hired?
No, everything.
Everyone.
I don't distinguish. Why would you, if someone's gonna
Yeah,
quit? Yeah, you want to keep them from quitting, you want them to work more. You talk about deficits as a result of this, but let me just tell you that when you look at this, because it's a temporary process, you'll get that GDP higher. It will pay for itself over 10 years, which is the way we measure deficits, we measure costs. It would be a very positive revenue. All of you see what I'm talking about there? Now let me come back to your question and then I'll open it up again. Trade. Trump. Tariff man. This is the guy, isn't he? How many times have you heard him? You know, I'm going to beg you on this earth, especially when it comes to politicians, do not listen to what they say. Watch what they do. Okay? Trump, when he was in, had the best free trade agreement with North America, Mexico,
Canada.
you could reduce tariffs dramatically, made it much more free, with South Korea, with Japan, I could go on. He had a conversation with me, now this was in 2017, all right? He called me at my home, and I've known Trump for a long, long time, not well, but I've known him. General Electric adopted me the day I was born. They adopted Donald Trump the day he was born. They adopted Leah and Cooperman the day he was born. They adopted Jerry Parsky the day he was born. They adopted Peter Uberoth the day he was born. They have adopted about 15 of us from the first day we joined the labor force, and they will not let us go. GE wouldn't. GE set me up with my money management firm, was my biggest client, has been my biggest beneficiary, and Donald Trump's as well. GE Capital was the biggest investor in Trump developments and all of these products. And I could go through. GE has just been wonderful. I called Jack Welch when I heard. I've known Donald Trump, but I never had good conversations, never had long ones. But when he opened up Jean Georges in New York, he poured me a glass of champagne. I was with him at the opening of the Lion King with Disney. I've been at many of the fundraisers for cancer research and all these others, but never just to say hello and know who he is. And so I called up Jack Welch, and I said, Jack, Donald Trump is running for president. Can you tell me about Donald Trump as a person? And he said, yes, Arthur, I can, but I'm not endorsing him for the presidency, nor am I against him for the presidency. I'm just going to tell you about the Donald Trump I know at General Electric. I'm just going to tell you, factually speaking, we at General Electric have made money in every single deal we have done with Donald Trump. He's been the ethical, good partner in everything we've done. We would love to do business with Donald Trump every single day of the week and twice on Sunday. He's the best partner we've ever had. That is verbatim from Jack Welch, head of GE, before he died, on Donald Trump. Now, this conversation I had with Donald Trump on trade, he said, Arthur, you know I'm a free trader. And I said, well, yes, sir, I do. He ran an international company, and I don't know of any international business person. I don't know anyone who's an international business person who doesn't love free trade. Everyone of them loves free trade. They hate tariffs, they hate quotas, they hate governments, they hate regulations. They love free trade. They want to be able to buy products where they're the cheapest. They want to sell products where they're the most expensive, and they want to arbitrage the global market. Every company, CEO, loves free trade. Look at FedEx Chairman Fred Smith or any of them. They just love. They want to marry free trade. Donald Trump is no different than that. Plus, I said to him, and I should not have said this, but I said, plus, sir, anyone who imports 2 foreign wives also has to love free trade. He did not laugh.
No?
He did not. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Was it not near him?
Huh?
Was his wife near him?
No, it was on the phone.
Okay,
no.
that's fine.
He said, let me just tell you what I am. I am a free trader, Arthur, you know I am. And I said, yes, sir. He said, but when I look at this world today, I see all the developed countries, all the major countries. Now this is not Hong Kong, or it's not Jersey, Guernsey, or Suffolk, the little islands there. It's not Manx, the Isle of Man. It's not, the little tiny places that have freer trade. But of the major countries, the U.S. is the freest trade big country in the world. If you get an automobile in the United States that's ready to be driven on the roads, and you ship that automobile to Japan, it will cost you about $50,000 to retrofit that car to be legally drivable on Japanese roads. Non-tariff barriers are very expensive, okay? I could go through all of these examples he said to me, but the U.S. is the most free trade nation in the world, and these other countries' governments are ignorant. They don't know what they're doing. They're old-line mercantilists, and all they care about is their exports, and they love their exports and they hate their imports. They just are just basic. They don't understand, Arthur, that their tariffs on U.S. products hurts their country. Their subsidies on their exports hurts their country. It's gains from trade. It's a win-win. It's comparative advantage. They don't understand this. All they care about is access to the U.S. markets. That's all they. So how am I going to get a set of policies that we can achieve freer trade? How can I do this? Well, the only leverage I have with these countries, and this is every damn one of them, every single one, the only leverage I have is their access to the U.S. market. So what I'm going to do with them is I'm going to threaten them with access to the U.S. market if they don't negotiate a freer trade deal with the United States. So he talks about that I'm going to tax Chinese products up to 60%, up to 90%, and I'm going to do that so I can bring them to the negotiation table so that we can negotiate a free trade arrangement that makes both countries better off. I'm a negotiator, Arthur. I'm not a professor of economics. I believe in free trade. But the only way we can ever achieve it is not by talking, and woo, and doing all this fancy stuff. If you want to get it done, we've got to negotiate a free trade agreement, and the only way I can bring these people to the table is threaten tariffs to them. That is exactly his conversation with me that day. Now, I'll give you one more factual thing on that, and you judge for yourselves what you think. The factual thing is that he was at the G7 meeting in Ottawa. We are a member, the U.S. is a member of the G7. And he had to leave the meeting early because he was meeting with Kim Jong-un in Singapore. And very important, this is Donald Trump. He's willing to sit down with Putin. He's willing to sit down with Xi. He's willing to sit down with the Ayatollah. He's willing to sit down with Kim Jong-un and try to negotiate peace and get something done. And so he was going there and he said to the other 6 members of the group, forgive me, I have to leave. I'm going to meet with Kim Jong-un, and you want me very much to meet with Kim Jong-un. Believe me, you want me to do that. But I will make a deal with you right now. I have just one thing left to say before I leave. The United States is prepared today to get rid of all tariffs and all non-tariff barriers if you 6 countries will also agree to getting rid of your tariffs and your non-tariff barriers. And they all sat there like this.
Looking at the horizon.
Have a good trip, Donald. Under Donald Trump, he wants to succeed in free trade, and he talks tough. He's a negotiator. When you look at what he does, it is very different than the words. Now, every left-wing politician in the U.S. said he's the tariff man, he wants to, just the reverse is true. Okay?
And regarding geopolitics with the NATO and other things, what he's going to do?
He again is a negotiator. And when he looks at NATO and you're not paying your fair share, are we going to protect a country that won't live up to its contributions in NATO? If you're that country and Donald Trump is elected president, do you think you might want to increase your contributions to live up to your promise?
Immediately.
Donald Trump knows how to negotiate. And sometimes that's, now, I am not a negotiator. I am not. I roll up in a little ball, I start crying like a girl. I cry under my bed and I weep and I go, what? And I wet myself. But Donald Trump is a negotiator. And he likes doing this stuff. I do not like doing it. I do the fallback position every time. Okay, I'll give you my best deal. No, Donald Trump doesn't do that. No, sorry, go ahead.
I think when it came to NATO, I read a statistic when he was president, when that argument was occurring and we were worried that we were alienating our friends. The U.S. at the time was contributing $40 billion a year to NATO. The next single biggest contributing state actor was the UK at $4 billion. And that's what he was trying to show, that it's disproportionate, our support for our friends versus our friends' support for us, or for the nation.
And when Donald Trump was president of the United States, Mexico did our immigration laws and enforced them on the Mexican side of the border. The day Biden took office, that went down. They stopped the wall, and now we have 12 million more illegal aliens. I mean, look at Donald Trump knows how to negotiate. He knows how to do deals. I don't. And when I hear him talk, I have no way of judging whether he's right or wrong, but I do understand what he's saying. Does that answer your question?
And do you think that he can take the two chambers, like you have a Republican ticket from top to bottom?
I'll tell you what happened with the real president. Now, as you know, I worked with one president really closely. The reason I was so close to Ronald Reagan was not because he picked me out of all the world's economists. The reason is, I tell everyone that he had all the economists on a big stage, and he sat there and looked at all of us, put on his glasses, said, I'll take the little short fat one over there. That is not how that happened. Unfortunately, that's not how it happened. The way my selection occurred was that my godfather is Ronald Reagan's best friend. So I have been social friends with Reagan for eons. All the dinner parties, everything, I was always involved in all the advisory things. And I just will be very honest with you, I much prefer getting a good job because of privilege rather than actually earning it. And I will take privilege every day of the week, but that's why I was so close to Reagan for all those years. My first publication in academics was in the first economic report of the governor in 1967 under Ronald Reagan. That was my first academic. So that's how I got with Reagan. And if you look at the situation with Reagan, and what was the question again? And
The question was, politically speaking, if he can
the
get...
House and the Senate.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, yes, we had a bill in 1986 that is always called the 1986 tax bill. Okay, that's what the bill was. Let me tell you what it was. Let me tell you what it was, this tax bill.
You should take your time to answer the question.
No, when it comes to sleep, I have thousands of years to sleep. And when it comes to eating, I'll make up for it. Believe me when I tell you I'll make up for it. All right? We had the 1986 tax bill. Let me tell you what we did. We cut the highest marginal income tax rate in the United States from 50. We don't have a VAT, by the way, just for the record, for you Brazilians, we do not have a VAT. This is it. We shot the highest marginal income tax rate from 50% to 28%. Is that a good enough tax cut for the super fat richies? We not only cut the highest tax rate from 50% to 28%, we also raised the lowest tax rate on the poor, the minority, the disenfranchised. We raised the lowest tax rate from 12.5% to 15%. We went down to two tax rates, 28% and 15% were the two tax rates. We got rid of all the other tax rates. We went from 11 tax brackets to two tax rates. Not only did we do that, but we also cut the corporate tax rate. We cut the corporate tax rate just to make sure we helped all the industrialist people and the fat cap wealthy people. We cut the corporate tax rate from 46% to 34%. All right? We also got rid of all of the deductions, exemptions, exclusions in the tax codes. Huge amount of exemptions, deductions, and exclusions in the tax code, which made the tax bill revenue neutral, static revenue neutral. You with me? Now, can you imagine that bill today in the United States?
No.
There wouldn't be one vote for it, not one. Not a Republican or a Democrat. Stupid. But what type of racist, bigots, horrible people are you? Well, let me tell you what the vote was in 1986. It was very, very close. The bill passed in the Senate 97-3.
Wow.
Now, did you hear that? The bill passed 97-3. There were 3 Democrats that voted against it. We had Paul Simon from Illinois, that guy with the little bow tie. If any of you remember that little dweeb up there. We had whatchamacallit, Merkelef from Montana, left wing. We had Laffer from Michigan. Those were the only 3 people who voted against that bill. Who voted for it? Teddy Kennedy voted for it. He was pretty liberal, wouldn't you agree?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden from Delaware voted for it. Tall and pink Bill Bradley voted for it. My next door neighbor, who was one of my dearest friends, a guy named Al Gore. He was over at my house. We were having coffee. Where's Nick? Nick, you can remember the day he came over there. And he said he voted for the 86. He said it was the best bill I'd ever voted for in my life on economics. This is Al Gore. I could go through all of them who voted for it. You know, that's how we're going to win the House and the Senate. You know, when we look at people, you know, if you're a transgender person and you like tax cuts, you've got a seat at my table. If you're a black person and like tax cuts, you got a seat at my table. If you're old and like tax cuts, seat at my table. Young and like tax cuts, female, male, anyone who likes tax cuts has a place at my table. You know, if you're a white Christian Republican American and you want a tax increase, no place at my table. You know, we were welcoming, we opened our arms and brought in all people. This was not a partisan issue. It's not left wing, it's not right wing, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat. It's good economics. And we won landslides. And we created the greatest prosperity and the biggest, longest peacetime in U.S. history. Yes, sir.
Professor,